You're kind of frozen. Is anyone else catching this?
I also can't see him. Should we put something in the chat?
Yeah. You're so frozen.
Oh.
Like going back to
Oh, well, another one bites the dust.
Oh.
I bet he'll be back in a second.
I can go. So like one of the biggest takeaways for me is just remembering like compassion, not only for other people, but like treating myself with compassion and like self-care just being a big thing because like you can't take care of other people if you're not taking care of yourself first. So yeah. And then I don't have any really fun life updates. I think I'm gonna be assistant directing the main stage show next semester or next year. So that's very exciting.
Yay.
I think for me, it's really just been like sort of taking a look at your own actions and like having other people to do that with has been pretty cool. And I don't really have any significant life updates, so.
How was Passover?
It's been nice. I did a little mini rushed Seder with my friends that I'm living with right now, and that was fun.
Yay.
Yep.
Amazing. Okay, well, I want to check on Eric again before we move forward. Are you alive? Does everyone have the source sheet up?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you want me to send the link in the chat?
I've got it.
Cool.
Got it.
Amazing. I don't want to start without him, but also we should keep going. Well, we'll just start, and then when he comes in, we can get his update. Hopefully not blurred. So this is kind of a mix of a reflection and like a nice just like transition, send you on your way throughout the summer or the next phase of your life. But I found this quote that I think speaks well to this session and this program as a whole. So does someone want to read it? Casey, I feel like you should read it.
Torah is not education, it's transformation.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Eric?
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, my Wi-Fi doesn't work anymore. Like it hasn't worked the past 4 days.
I know the
I
feeling.
will
Oh no.
drive over to my grandparents' house right now. But in the meantime, I can be on the phone call.
Oh, okay, that works. Want to share your update or what you were trying to say? Blurry.
Sure, absolutely. Let's see. I think the thing that's been most valuable to me as far as like ethics with Emily goes is just like hanging on to the idea of like setting intentions and like going back to like the first ethics with Emily session, like, you know, where we identified certain things that we want to like live in our practices, and that was just really valuable for me. So
Yay.
yeah. And then as far as the life update goes, still trying to figure out where I'm living for the summer because my parents are moving. To their like back to like a smaller home, but that means that I won't have any room. So it looks like I'm going to be living in the Bay Area for the summer, which will be interesting.
Nice.
So yay for budgeting, groceries, and doing all that fun stuff. So
Lovely. Thanks for sharing.
yeah.
All right, we're gonna dive into the source sheet, and I'm starting with this quote Torah is not education, it's transformation, because I think that really speaks to at least what I've been able to observe from you guys is like these sessions aren't really just Torah studying and looking at text. Like you've been able to learn a lot about yourself in new ways and think about like these Jewish teachings and ideas. And I mean, I can't speak for you guys, but it seems like it's shaping a lot of things outside of just like, let's learn what this text says and move on. And at least that's what it's been for me too. So if y'all have other thoughts about this quote, I welcome them. And then we can transition to the next part. Any thoughts on this quote? Do you hate it? All right. Want to move on? Cool. So I found this little blurb trend. I don't know how I feel about the word blurb, but it just keeps coming. So this kind of it talks about like some of the Hebrew root of the word Torah that are interesting, and just kind of talks about how Torah is more than just like this book that we read. So let's kind of break it up paragraph by paragraph and see what comes up. Who wants to start?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hang on, what's Torah? Not an easy question, and one with no simple answer. The briefest is that the Torah is a collection of stories, laws, guiding principles, instructions, and lessons on how to live a righteous life. Now, here's a stab at a more philosophical answer.
Every Hebrew word has something called a shoresh, or root. In Hebrew, not only does each word have its own definition, but each word's shoresh has its own definition too. That means Hebrew words with the same shoresh are connected, intertwined, and often deeply connected to each other.
Take the shoresh of Torah, yareh, which means mark or target. We understand the shoresh more broadly to mean hitting the mark or having direction. Other words with the same shoresh as Torah are mora, teacher, and hore, parent. Deep understanding of what Torah is can be found right there in its shoresh. Just think, how do parents, teachers, books, and wisdom help us find our direction?
Torah is the heart and soul of the Jewish people, but the Torah goes beyond collective wisdom. The Torah came before everything and continues to serve as a blueprint for the cosmos. It's an expression of love, commitment, dedication, and intimacy. In studying Torah, the goal isn't simply to gain more knowledge or wisdom, but rather to better understand how we as humans relate to oneness, to the energy of the universe, and to each other. So there's a lot of things here. I think it's really interesting to talk more about like the actual Hebrew word and the root of the word Torah. Like the idea of mark and target and hitting the mark, having direction, and also the teacher component. So I'm wondering, based off of that root and that idea, have you felt like you hit your mark or hit a target or have some sort of direction that is like maybe different from when you started studying Torah? Or just like whatever kind of comes to mind when you're thinking about the root of the word?
I think the root is very interesting, especially looking at how it relates to like parents and teachers, because like, I guess that is something that I've been thinking about a lot, that like, I've been looking at where my education comes from, and like, looking at it this way, it's really easy to see that like my education isn't just from my classes and my teachers and like Vanderbilt itself, but like it comes from everywhere around me and like through other studies that aren't necessarily in the classroom, and that those can be like just as guiding and just as important as like traditional education.
I love that. Great point. Anyone else have similar thoughts or different thoughts?
I think for me, it's like the idea that it's sort of more guiding or like sort of setting a target rather than like sort of just teaching you things you wanted for your own targets that you already have, like just really resonates with what I've gotten out of this so far this semester.
Yeah, I like the sentence at the end where it says the goal isn't simply to gain more knowledge or wisdom, but rather to better understand how we as humans relate to oneness, the energy of the universe, and to each other. Because I like that's like my understanding of the Torah. Like it's about these greater ideas and practices about how to love ourselves and each other, and it's not like studying Torah for the sake of being the greatest scholar of Torah. And I thought that was, they put it into words nicely there.
I love that. It also makes me think of, like, obviously part of the Torah, there's a lot of rules and laws and things that we're supposed to do. And I think some people look at it that way. I don't know if anyone's watched Unorthodox yet. You should.
I saw the trailer and it looked really good.
But that just made me realize how, for some people, the Torah could be so like constricting. But I've like been so grateful to be able to been able to look at the Torah as a nice, just kind of reminder of, or not even a reminder, but to have something that's so not constricting and have something where I can look at it and not find like a right or wrong, and just have a new, fresh and refreshing way to like look at life and look at my Judaism and learn from you guys. So I think it's super interesting. Eric, do you have any thoughts?
I'm sorry. It's a little bit, I can't see it in front of me, so I'm going to do my best to remember it from when you read it out loud.
Totally
but
fine.
I do like the kind of like idea of like being able to like have it guide you and not necessarily like, here's how you do everything in every situation. And like, you know, the idea is not to like study Torah so you know everything, but to be able to like, but for it to help guide you, I guess. I don't know. That just resonates with me. And like, I feel like it takes pressure off of like, I have to memorize the Torah and know it because I need it to be able to tell me what to do in every situation. And instead it kind of guides you to like how, a way to live that, you know, is ideal, I guess.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Amazing. Well, I thought this was a nice intro and reminder of like that we're studying Torah and where like what the word Torah, where the word Torah comes from. So I want y'all to just start thinking about like what it is you have learned and have you hit your target, or what does that look like? Or maybe your goal of studying Torah is never to hit the target, but just like having a new direction or path to look at life or look at your Judaism, because I'm learning that it's forever changing and there's like always something new to learn. And even if it's something you've learned before, like you get to come back to it like 5 years later and have like a whole new perspective. So I just want y'all to start thinking about that target and that mark and what teaching and learning means to you. So with that,
if I can jump in real quick.
yeah.
Something you just said, just like it resonates with me as like a musician, because like
you know, with like music, like you're never going to be perfect, but you always strive for perfection. And it's just like really, really weird, like Ouroboros, you know, where it's like chasing its own tail. And it's like this idea of like, you know, the pursuit of perfection is the goal. And, you know, that, like, I don't know, just what you said about Torah and how you phrased it like that just really reminded me of that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. That makes me think a lot too. Amazing. So the next thing is titled On Being Distant. And I actually, my rabbi in Charleston shared this with me, and she led a text study the first week of all of this social distancing, all of this Zoom life that we live now. And my mom went to it, and my mom was talking about it. So I emailed my rabbi. I was like, that sounded super interesting. Can I like learn it with you? And so she took basically a prayer for healing out of a book that I think she just has like a book of all these prayers about healing. And she shared with me what she taught in her text study. And so I wanted to bring it to you guys. So we can read it, but then we're gonna talk about each of the highlighted words. So would one of y'all like to read it out loud?
Yay!
Eric is back.
Do you want to read the prayer?
Sure. Which one are we on? I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. The On Being Distant.
Okay. Blessed are you, Shaddai, our God, in whom we seek relationship. Like Abraham, who challenged you when he saw an injustice, and Moses, who gave voice to his frustration, I too now beseech you. I find myself in a place of alienation, distant from you, your presence. Where are you? Are you in this place? O God, I seek answers. I seek healing, and I seek consolation. The sages call you something. Hamakom, the place. I reach out to you and invite you to enter my makom, my place. O God, move across this distance and join me. Bless this place, I pray, with your other great and holy names, Redeemer, Merciful One, and Compassionate One. Amen.
Yay, thank you. Do y'all have any thoughts about this before we dive into some specifics? Just overall thoughts or feelings? Alrighty, so we're gonna kind of tear this apart a little bit. The words that are highlighted in blue, Shaddai, Hamakom, Redeemer, Merciful One, Compassionate One, they're all different words for God, but they all kind of bring up different concepts. So we're gonna start with Shaddai, which means guardian in Hebrew, and so that's Shin, Daled, Yud, the Hebrew letters that are on mezuzahs that we put on our doorposts to keep us safe and protect us. Also, a reminder that you're Jewish. But it also it's like weaves into Passover because that's what it kind of comes from the story of Passover and putting it on your doorpost to protect you. So in this crazy world that is our new life, as we're starting to transition from like the end of the school year to summer, what are you doing, or what can you do moving forward that are things that you can do to make you feel safe or guarded, kind of like this prayer is saying? Or what do you already do that makes you feel safe?
I think reaching out to others, because like a lot of times it can feel like, you know, the way it talks about that there's like a sense of alienation and like that you need help, but if you're not reaching out to others, they might not even know that you're in that place. And so like a lot of the time you want people to be like checking in on you, but sometimes in order to have that, like you need to give people the like, hey, I'm feeling down.
Yeah, I love that. Any other thoughts?
Not like a thing to do all the time, but at least some of the time checking out of media. Like I know sometimes I'll go down a rabbit hole where I just am like reading all today's articles about, you know, the virus and everything closing and, you know, the economic downturn and just like all this bad like stuff. And like it's good to know what's going on and to, you know, read the news and be educated, obviously, but at the same time, like there's also points where you can
Oh.
No.
At least I'm not the only one who's having technical difficulties. That's all I'm saying.
We've all been there.
True.
Leah, you froze a little bit at the end.
Oh, I froze.
Yeah.
Oh, what did you hear?
Will you finish? Will you like say the end of it again?
Okay. Yeah, just like when you're feeling really overwhelmed by everything you're reading and just like feeling like it's too much, it's okay to check out for a little bit and regain your sense of like normalcy and security for a bit.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example of also like finding balance of obviously wanting to be in the know and being educated and being able to recognize when it is like okay, I need to put this down and this is not good right now for me. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find like some semblance of like normalcy, and like obviously none of this is normal, but like I don't know, like I'm trying to think about like how I usually am in the summer when I'm stuck at home and like trying to do those sorts of things so it doesn't feel completely new and novel. Like I'm trying to like, you know, still have like nightly Hallmark movie watching with like my parents and like stuff like that. So yeah, so just trying to like have some sort of something that just feels normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think for me, like it's weird because I'm trying to like adapt to this new normal. And like I had like so many plans. Like I got accepted to like 3 summer festivals and it was gonna be great. I had an internship and like literally it's all been canceled. And so like trying to like find like this kind of like how do I find peace with myself and like what can I do this summer that is just only reliant upon me? Like what can I bring forward to improve myself, whether that's like playing my instrument or like working on myself as a human and like, you know, trying to exercise or, you know, eat right, all these good things that we should do.
Yeah. All great examples. I think for me, this is like almost just going back to like the basics like of social distancing and stay at home. Like this is gonna sound weird, but like I really want almond butter from Trader Joe's and we don't have any almond butter. And like I could just go to Trader Joe's and get some and I don't need it and I'm not supposed to leave my house unless like I really have to. So I'm just trying to do the things that keep myself safe and others safe as much as possible. And like it's like a nice reminder that like I think this also puts into perspective the things that like the difference between needs and wants, and like I don't need almond butter right
Think
now.
of it as your mitzvah.
I like that. So that's my silly example. But I hope that y'all can continue to do things that make you feel safe and make you feel guarded, just like a mezuzah does to some other people. And maybe you'll get a mezuzah or make one as an art project because you'll have a bunch of time. Awesome. Any other thoughts about Shaddai before we go to Hamakom? Beautiful. So I like this one a lot. Hamakom means place. And I really like the way that it's worded in this prayer. Like the sages call you Hamakom, the place I reach out to you and invite you to enter my Makom, my place. It's just like a fun Hebrew word to know, I feel like. So obviously, like creating the meaning of a space is something that's very relevant right now. So I'm wondering what it is that you are doing or can do to make the space that you're living in for an indefinite amount of time feel like yours or feel like a sanctuary or make it some sort of holy space that you can feel safe in.
I think I've been like dealing with that a lot, especially because like we're moving and we're like selling the house that like I spent a lot of time in. And so my parents are, moving back to the smaller house, and then I'm gonna be like living with my grandfather now, and like having to like move around. Like obviously I'm anchored by like my instrument, which is literally like 10 feet and like weighs like 900 pounds. Like it's this huge thing. It's always my anchor. But like I quite literally, because it's so big, but I think like just being able to realize that it's like a state of mind and like like there's certain things that I want to build into my daily life that can make me feel more centered and grounded and feel like wherever I am is a place because I have God with me, I have myself, and I have the connections that I carry with me, even if the people aren't there.
Yeah. It's so interesting how like your instrument is something that is a grounding feeling for you.
Oh, absolutely. Like I miss it when I'm not at when I was leaving for winter break going back for the spring semester, I didn't cry when I was leaving my parents. I cried when I left my instrument.
Oh, man.
So, what does that tell you about me?
But you're so dedicated.
Oh yeah, that's what it is.
I love that. What other
This
ways?
is
Go for it.
this is sort of a silly example as well. But like because all of my stuff is still in my dorm, it feels kind of weird here because like I don't have the clothes that I normally would and like any of that kind of stuff. But like I've been painting these canvases that I'm planning on hanging up in my dorm next year if they ever unsuspend the housing process, fingers crossed. Um, and so like I'm trying to find things that like even though it's not for my home right now, like it will be my home next year, which is like a nice feeling. And then also my mom has been graciously buying me clothes on her weekly grocery shopping trips. So I have clothes like this new dress, just like little Walmart dresses. And like those make me feel, I don't know, like everything is sort of okay and more like where I expect it to be, even though everything was just sort of like pulled out from under me. So yeah.
I like that.
I think for me, like, there's the really strong urge to just like spend all your time with the people you're living with, but like carving out space from everyone and like kind of having your own routines has just been like a big thing.
Yeah. I recorded an episode of the podcast that you should all listen to this morning with Rachel Haber, and the text that she picked talks about silence. And I think especially now it's so important. Like it's again going back to balance and finding the balance of having your silent time to recharge, but also you don't want to have too much silence where you're like lonely and having negative thoughts, but then there's also thoughts that like negative things that can come from like not giving yourself time silence at all. So I think especially that's a great example of having time for yourself, and that's nice that like hamakom means the place, but it doesn't have to be a physical space. It can also be something that's not physical. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, similar to that. Like, I'm here with my family, and we also just moved a little over a year ago, so it's not the house that I grew up in, but yeah, I've just been hanging out with them a lot more. I annoy my sister constantly, to the point where she's like, I need to do schoolwork, go away. But that's
My sister too.
what's keeping me grounded.
Yeah. I think for me, like it's nice just to like clean my room and make my bed every day. And I think in a way, like just cleaning in general is something that is nice. Like I guess it's like if we're living in this space for so long, it's nice to be nice to the space, so that we can have some sort of niceness in return. But we also got hardwood floors in my room, my sister's room, and like our playroom that we call it. And my mom was talking about the they've been in for like a month, so it was like right before everything got kind of crazy. It's like for me these floors are really grounding, and it was like a new foundation for us before all of this, which is an interesting thing, but it also creates some sort of sanctuary feeling and being kind to the ground that we walk on. So any other thing on Hamakom? Cool. Well, I hope that your space continues to be sacred and that it allows you to be the best versions of yourself. We're gonna go to the last three words: Redeemer, merciful one, compassionate one. So these are various names for God, and I want y'all to think back a little bit to our God shopping ethics with Emily if you participated. And this can also be something that like we don't have to go in a full-on conversation, because I think this is also a thought that is like forever changing and can be challenging. But there's clearly so many versions of God for each one of us. Maybe there isn't one. So I want you to think about how you can navigate making the idea of God something more accessible to you at this time, or just like what kind of name is fitting for your version. And if you want to share what is coming up for you right now, go for it. And we can also just like sit with this prayer for a little bit. All right. Any other thoughts? Alrighty. Should we move on from this on being distant prayer? Cool. So, I was trying to think about what would be a good way to, a good final text. So I honestly, there's so many things in Pirkei Avot that I've really never ever had to look at chapter 6, which is the last one. And I found this long one, and I apologize that it looks long, but I kind of read it like a poem, and I think that it like really, like I think it's like a beautiful summary of everything Pirkei Avot teaches, and a lot of the ideas and concepts that we've talked about. So would someone like to read it out loud? Or just like read until you don't want to read anymore, and then someone else can take it away?
All right, let's do this.
Go for it.
Greater is learning Torah than the priesthood and then royalty, for royalty is acquired by 30 stages, and the priesthood by 24, but the Torah by 48 things. By study, attentive listening, proper speech, by an understanding heart, by an intelligent heart, by awe, by fear, by humility, by joy, by attending to the sages, by critical give and take with friends, by argumentation with disciples, by clear thinking, by study of scripture, by study of Mishnah, by a minimum of sleep, by a minimum of chatter, by a minimum of pleasure, by a minimum of frivolity, by a minimum of preoccupation with worldly matters, by long suffering, by generosity, by faith in sages, by acceptance of suffering. I'm stopping because there's a period.
Lovely. Well read.
Learning of Torah is also acquired by one who recognizes his place, who rejoices in his portion, who makes offense about his words, who takes no credit for himself, who is loved, who loves God, who loves his fellow creatures, who loves righteous ways, who loves reproof, who loves uprightness, who keeps himself far from honors, who does not let his heart become swelled on account of his learning, who does not delight in giving legal decisions, who shares in the bearing of a burden with his colleague, who judges with the scales weighted in his favor, who leads him on to truth, who leads him on to peace, who composes himself at his study, who asks and answers, who listens to others and himself adds to his knowledge, who learns in order to teach, who learns in order to practice, who makes his teacher wiser, who is exact in what he has learned, and who says a thing in the name of him who said it.
Thus you have learned, everyone who says a thing in the name of him who said it brings deliverance into the world. And as it is said, and Esther told the king in Mordecai's name.
Yay. Thanks.
Teamwork.
So do you have the general thoughts about this, like, before we dive in? Like, what do you like? What are you like, meh? What does it mean?
I was a little bit upset by a minimum of sleep because that's not happening.
Gonna comment on that.
I like that whole section. Like, there's a minimum of sleep. You got to do like these other things. Like, it can't just be all study all the time.
Yeah.
See, that's interesting you said that because I read it as like you need to minimize the amount of sleep that you get so you can be studying Torah.
Oh.
Like that's what I read it as.
Yeah, at first I read it as get a minimum, like get the sleep you need, but then when it was like a minimum of frivolity, I was like, oh, we mean as little sleep.
Yeah. No, that's upsetting.
I think that's funny. Like, there's so many different ways to study Torah, like for some people, maybe like they don't want to sleep because they want to study all the Torah in the world. But for other people, like they study Torah so that they can teach and so that they become wiser. So I just think that there's so many different versions of Torah study in this.
Mhm. I also think that's interesting because like a lot of this seems based on other people. Like it doesn't necessarily seem like it means you have to be like studying like the scripture all the time. Like it seems like if you're getting a minimum of sleep because you're because you're like loving your fellow creatures and like doing other things like that, it seems like that's also considered study of Torah, which I find really interesting.
Is there one or two lines in this that like fully speaks to your maybe why, or just you as a person and someone that has been doing Torah study or learning the Torah?
So instead of like, because we're all separated, in my percussion class where it's all the percussionists, we're reading this book about like how to practice and like how to effectively practice and like the science behind it. And so who learns in order to practice just really resonates with me right now. But like those kind of three right there, who learns in order to teach, who learns in order to practice, who makes his teacher wiser. I think those are all, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked all of those three as well. Um, yeah, it's just like really, I think profound statements about like why we learn in the first place, like asking you to examine your motivations. Like, are you learning for yourself, or are you learning to like share what you learn with others and to be connected with others? And how are you going to do that? Are you going to teach? Are you going to practice?
Mm.
Yeah, I thought they're really good, just like little statements that are like make you think a little bit.
Absolutely.
I really liked oh my god, I just lost it. Who shares in the bearing of a burden with his colleague, because like that's one thing that I struggle with. Like I feel like I'm pretty good at making other people feel like they can tell me things, but then like I'm really bad about doing the same to them because I'm always like, I don't want to be a burden. Even though like that's not really what's happening. And so I just think that's like a really important message both ways, that you have to like pick up other people's if you want to help them, but like you can't be afraid to do the same.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. I love that you can recognize about yourself too. And I feel like you've been continuing to like see how you can practice that and practice like putting yourself first.
I think it's cool, like the whole section where it's like, oh my goodness, where is it? But basically that you're not like learning Torah for the honors of it, or in order to be like, yeah, I know the Torah, so I'm gonna like make judgments on everyone else. But like, it's really something that you're doing to make use of and not to just kind of wave around.
Yeah. Where is the line or that part?
Who keeps himself far from honors, who does not let his heart become swelled on account of his learning, who does not delight in giving legal decisions. Like,
yeah. Okay. So does everyone feel like, can y'all see me that I just highlighted all of these things? Did what everyone say feel is like their thing or why or thing that's most resonant highlighted now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want you to kind of just like take this, you can take the whole thing or like the thing that speaks to you most, think about it for the next few days, because we're going to come back to this at the finale on Tuesday. Because I just want you to start thinking about like all the things that can come from studying Torah and like what is it that makes you excited or question or whatnot. And that's why it started with mine. I highlighted who makes a teacher wiser, because it's been such a blessing for me to be able to learn from all of you. And I think when I found this text, I was just like really excited that it was like a giant summary of everything we've talked about and learned about. So I'm excited to see how this can maybe be like the glue that ties everything together. So keep thinking about this and we'll come back to it. So before we close, are there any other thoughts about this text or Torah study or the highlighted pieces that are coming up? Cool. So this is optional homework. If you feel excited with an art project about like with a line or two from this piece, like I was gonna have us do like a quick like magazine collage or like painting or word art, but then I found the text and I wanted to like do this discussion. But if you feel excited to like make something from your why, go for it and send me a picture, and maybe I'll do it too because I love magazine art projects. Cool. So, to close, I thought we could just share final thoughts for now, but we'll also have a space to share on Tuesday. But kind of like, what is a takeaway that is like truly resonating with you right now, either from this session or like ethics overall?
Making sure to connect with both other people and yourself.
And also, I think just like being critical of the path you're on and just sort of like always reevaluating and like making sure that you're heading towards the goals that you want to be heading towards.
Yeah, I think similar to what Leah said, like, you know, reaching out to others, relying on them, sharing.
I think this, you know, just meeting with this group for the past semester, you know, especially after everything's changed, it's just been nice to have like a constant. And I think, you know, relying on other people is not a weakness, it's a strength, I think.
Yes, agreed. I think for me, I don't know like what exactly has shifted in the last month, but I've like enjoyed Jewish learning this month a lot more than I have this semester overall. I don't know. Something has changed where I'm like, give me more text. I don't know. It's just everything is landing differently and resonating with me a little bit more. So I'm excited to kind of just like take the summer to like take everything that y'all have given me and figure out how I want to like continue doing this program and continue like building my back pocket Torah, because I've like really enjoyed it in like a surprising way, because of these groups. So I'm excited to just keep learning and keep becoming like a wiser teacher and keep learning from other people. So yay. Let's close with one word of how we're feeling.
I'm going to
Love,
say
I guess.
inspired.
Thoughtful.
Connected.
Grounded. Amazing.